Good evening. I'd like to thank Terry for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. But before that, I'd like to thank Prasanto, because if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be associated with Terry. My husband and I had this passion for, in fact, my husband, really, I'm taking credit for this unfairly. He had this passion for building a home that was off the grid, completely self-sustained, and he just wanted to do this as his project. It was at that time that I met Prasanto, and he told me about Terry and the fact that we could do this together. We could get a home rated, and in fact, we were going to ask them to have a home rated when concurrently they were also looking at a self-rating, a home rating facility. You're a very qualified audience, industry experts, pioneers, so I'm not going to make my talk very long. What I'm basically going to talk about is what motivated us to go green, what steps we took to go green, the challenges we faced, and the responsibility that is on our shoulders. So very quickly, Rishi was very interested in this retreat. Our place is called Back of Beyond. It is Back of Beyond. It takes you an hour and a half from anywhere to get there. So it was a challenge to build it to begin with. The idea was both of us are farmers. We come from agricultural families in Punjab. And there was this calling to the roots where we felt the need to do a little bit of farming. That's how the idea of this home was born, and the fact that we would have a little farm, and then once we had a farm, we'd have to live there, and the house that, if the whole idea was about farming, then the house needed to be green and ecologically friendly. So I think that's where the seed was really born. We started off trying to find ways in which to go green. And without getting into complex terms, which often cynics and detractors come up with, things like carbon footprint, carbon rating, we just tried to attack it as simply as we could, which was, is the only way we knew till Prasanto came along and sort of showed us the light. We identified a piece of land, and we identified architects who were willing to work with us. So there are these two young architects based out of Bombay. They run a firm called Vibe Design. And the beauty of these two, this couple really, was that they were extremely open to the idea of trying to think out of the box. And what we realized after collaborating with them was that, and as Apurva when he was saying, taking us through the app, was that there's this whole enigma and mystery around what it takes to go green. Most people think of it as something that those who are aware that there is a way to go green seem to think of it as an expensive and time-consuming and difficult thing to do. Unfortunately, a larger section of the people aren't even aware that there exists something like this, but that's a separate matter. So they worked with us on, instead of just making us the design and just sort of finishing off their work, they were instrumental in sitting down with my husband on the drawing board and finding ways to make this house as efficient from the point of view of maximizing light, minimizing heat, directionally positioned in a manner wherein we would take natural advantage of the wind pattern in the area, cross ventilation, as people like me, lay people like me call it. There is an elaborate rainwater harvesting system that my husband has designed along with the architects, which involves, of course, being able to harvest a certain amount of the rainwater that comes out, and recharging the water table in our area with what we can't store. Now, just to let you know that Mulshi receives about a little more rain than Bombay does. So it's not Cherrapunji, but it does get a lot of rain. In fact, rain continues all the way till early October. So we also are putting up a 1 kVA solar, I don't know, plant or just windmill, I'm going to call it for now. And of course, we're also doing waste management. The one thing that we were very particular about was we liked the area for what it was, and we were determined to not change anything in terms of the flora, fauna that existed there. And we fortunately didn't have to move any trees. The area that the architects identified was the kind of an area that already had a clear patch. So we were able to stick to most of the guidelines, which we later found through GRIHA. And I think we are quite satisfied with the results. We are in the final stages of completion now. We've already started staying there. We stay there on weekends. And we should be completely done as a project by the end of March, I hope. Of course, the extension of this is we plan to grow organic vegetables and all that, but then that's another topic. Now, the challenges that we faced were many. Starting with, as you all are aware here, solar is a very, very expensive proposition. Maharashtra has some kind of a subsidy, information on which is rather vague. And in order to take advantage of the subsidy, you have to chase the authorities for a considerable period of time. We also have a wind subsidy. Wind is one of the green energy forms that are really encouraged in Maharashtra. But again, that is something which is shrouded in bureaucracy, and to try and permeate the layers and layers and layers of bureaucracy that exist is quite hard. The one thing that we actually found really disheartening was that, for example, I'll give you an example. So our bore well in our place is a concentric bore. So we pull out water from one and we recharge the bore through the outer pipe, whatever we can't store by virtue of rainwater harvesting. We put a meter there, so we're able to figure out how much water we're pulling out and how much water we're putting back into the ground. So the gentleman who was doing our bore work and doing our plumbing work couldn't understand why we were spending on this concentric bore, why we were spending on these meters, because it wasn't going to directly benefit us. He said कि जितना आपको पानी आपने सेव करना है वो तो आपने कर लिया है, अब इस पे आप खर्चा क्यों कर रहे हो? So I think this is where really the problem lies. There are those who are aware of it, but there is a large percentage of the larger population in this country that is completely unaware of the little simple, inexpensive things that can be done to save water, to make sure their homes heat up less, to manage waste, to, whether it's composting or whatever is available out there. And lastly, I think before I finish, all I'd like to say is that everybody here in this room is a stakeholder in trying to do their bit to help the environment in whatever way you want to do it. Some people are able to make bigger contributions. Organizations like Terry, GRIHA are doing much bigger things than maybe a small individual like me. Builders like you, those of you who are here, are able to impact people in a greater space. But eventually, we all have a responsibility on our shoulders. Whether or not the government subsidizes it, whether or not the government supports it, we have to fight for more eco-friendly policies. We have to fight for more initiatives, fight for more rewards that the government should give, and to make it much easier for a household that wants to go green, rather than create hurdles in their way, if they want to go green. And I think the biggest responsibility all of us have on our shoulders is evangelizing the whole idea of building green and being green, without trying to confuse it with the jargon of carbon footprint and carbon credit, because that's just really far. I think we are in a space where we just should focus on the basics of trying to educate people out there that there is such little steps that can be done, that can be undertaken to go green. So with that, I'm going to thank you all for being a very patient audience, most of you, and thank you for listening to me. Thank you very much.